Next game at noon, we got Arizona at Cincinnati, 12 p.m. Eastern Time on FS1. Cincinnati tries to stay alive in the Big 12 race right now. Cincinnati's trying to crash the college football playoff for the second time in program history, but it'll need to win out and win the Big 12 title in order to do so. The Bearcats right now are 7-2 on the year after losing to number 24 Utah a couple weeks ago, but they still only have one loss in conference because their other loss was against Nebraska in week 1. If Cincinnati wins its final 3 games, it'll clinch a trip to the Big 12 title game because they play BYU later in the year too, who they're kind of fighting with in the standings right now. But that starts this week against an Arizona squad that's 6-3 on the year and has won each of his last 2 games.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think for Cincinnati, the goal is simple. They still control their own destiny, right? Houston has 2 losses behind them. There's some other teams. Utah also. Utah's a big one, too, because they would lose that tiebreaker, but they've got 2 losses. So you're really looking at, for Cincinnati and for BYU, who we'll get to later in the Big 12, whichever one wins out, if they do, that's the team that's going to go and play most likely Texas Tech in the Big 12 title game. So every week for Cincinnati, the stakes only get bigger, and they need to set themselves up with a win to get into that BYU game next week, at least tied, if not ahead of them.
Definitely. So you have the Cincinnati offense, Dalton, with Brendan Sorsby, who's been one of the best quarterbacks in America this year. What should we know for him against Arizona?
He has, but there is still an issue with this Cincinnati offense that needs to be addressed, and that is their ability to throw to the outside against man-to-man coverage. This has been a problem. This was really the problem that came up the second half last year when they lost 5 games in a row to end the season, right? It was that Colorado game when man coverage got them, and then every team after them followed suit. Well, you had a similar problem a couple weeks ago against Utah where the corners for Utah just dominated their receivers. They need someone on the outside to step up and win one-on-one battles. Arizona runs man coverage at the 23rd highest rate in college football. They have the 8th best man coverage grade in college football. Cincinnati, when they see man coverage, 69th in yards per attempt, not great, 115th in explosive pass rate. It seems like a lot of times their answers for man coverage are low percentage throws, go balls and slot fades and things of that nature, but they don't set up enough and they don't separate enough against man coverage, especially when it gets physical at the line of scrimmage in their passing game. Look backs, the 2 games that they have lost were the 2 games where Brendan Sorsby had his lowest passing grades of the season. Why? Because those 2 teams, Nebraska and Utah, were not afraid of Cincinnati's receivers lining up one-on-one and beating them. They weren't afraid of it. Okay, so you need Cyrus Allen, you need Caleb Goody, maybe even at tight end, you need Joe Royer to beat some man-to-man coverage. They have to find a way on these passing downs when teams line up in press man to create explosive plays. They can do it against zone coverage. Sorsby can see that well. He trusts those windows, but when it comes to tight window throws against man-to-man, Sorsby and the wide receivers are still not executing at a very high level. I have to think, look, they already run a high rate of man coverage at Arizona. I got to wonder if they're going to ratchet that up even more and just go, you know what, as long as we can find a way to stop the run, because that's step number 1 against this Cincinnati team. It's still Tawi Walker and Evan Pryor and even Sorsby in the run game. But if you can get this team into obvious passing situations, line up in press man, see where it goes, see if they can beat you, because that's where Cincinnati has struggled both last year and this year. And that's the thing to me that is still the biggest question mark on this team. Can the wide receivers separate in those one-on-one situations?
Yeah, and Arizona right now is top 40 in the country in run defense grade too. So you're looking at Brendan Sorsby against man coverage. I'm looking at Noah Fifita against zone coverage in this one. Noah Fifita is back to his really good ways after having kind of a down year last year in 2024. He was great in 2023 though. 82.7 passing grade on the year is second in the Big 12 behind Brendan Sorsby. So you have the 2 highest graded quarterbacks in the Big 12 in this game in Noah Fifita and Brendan Sorsby. This is despite the fact that Arizona is only 104th in receiving grade this year after losing Noah Fifita's childhood best friend and, of course, top 10 pick Tedero McMillan to the Carolina Panthers. A big reason for how good Fifita has been this year is how good he's been from clean pockets, leading the conference with an 88.7 passing grade from a clean pocket. 79.9 passing grade against zone coverage is also 3rd in the Big 12 right now. Both of those numbers are important to note in this game because Cincinnati's pass rush has been practically non-existent this year. 23% pressure rate on the year is the 3rd lowest in the entire country this season. They have made up for it, though, with a pretty solid secondary overall that runs zone coverage at the third highest rate in the Power 4 at about 82% this year. But if Noah Fifita is as good from clean pockets and against zone coverage as he's been all year, it could be a lot of trouble for Cincinnati in this game.
No, absolutely. I think for Fifita, you're looking at a team with Cincinnati's defense in the way it's structured, same way that Iowa State's is structured because Tyson Veit is their defensive coordinator. It's basically just not designed to get a pass rush, really. If you can get one, cool, but it's designed to play with that three-man rush with a drop 8 in coverage. So they're looking at trying to just cut off those zone windows and not give them all that space. I do find interesting that in Arizona's loss to Iowa State, Fifita had his third lowest passing grade of the season and his only game with multiple interceptions. So that is something that he couldn't adjust to when they lost to the Cyclones. It's the same exact defense. They don't really rush the passer. They drop 8. It's that 3-3 stacked kind of defense. So I think when you're looking at Arizona, and they haven't run the ball lately as much as I thought they would, with Ishmael Mahdi and the rotation of running backs that they've got. So they're really putting the pressure on Fifita to stay clean and throw it into those tight windows. That's going to be the big question for Cincinnati, especially on the outside. Can they cover well enough? If they can do that, then I like their chances.
All right, ultimately, Dalton, in a game that is absolutely critical for Cincinnati to stay alive in the Big 12 race right now, who do you got between Arizona and Cincy?
I think it's interesting because that Utah game a couple weeks ago was really the first time that we saw Cincinnati get out-physicaled at the line of scrimmage, right? They didn't run the ball particularly well in that game, but I still think this run game at home at Nippert Stadium can get them through this week. They need to go in and physically dominate this Arizona team in the trenches. They don't want to get in obvious passing situations where the pressure is on Sorsby and on their wide receivers, but I'm going to trust this offensive line. I'm going to trust these backs, and honestly, I think Cincinnati's run defense makes a big difference in this game because it's great. There are times when Noah Fifita can get hot and carry you, but does Arizona want him to do too much, right? And do they want to run the ball maybe a little bit more? That's going to be tough against Jake Golday and Dante Corleone and this really good Cincinnati run defense. I like their defense a little bit better. I still like the stability the run game can give them. I think it's going to be tight. Cincinnati 27, Arizona 24.
I originally had Cincinnati in my prediction. I'm actually going to change it, though, now. After listening to all the breakdown that you had, and, of course, thinking about it a little bit more on my side, too. I got Arizona winning now, 28-27 over Cincinnati. I think it's a bad matchup for Cincinnati on both sides of the ball. In this one, it could come down to the wire with the two best quarterbacks right now in the Big 12, but I kind of like the matchup of Arizona playing a lot of man coverage and being really good at it against Cincinnati, and their kryptonite on offense for Cincinnati this year has been man coverage, and then Noah Fifita has been great from a clean pocket and great against zone coverage, and Cincinnati has no pass rush this year, and they play a lot of zone coverage too. So I'll take Arizona to pull it off on the road with a 1-point win over the Bearcats. Should be an awesome, awesome game. Dalton, we actually have a question in the chat from Walt about one of the quarterbacks in this game. Brendan Sorsby saying, how good of an NFL prospect do you think Sorsby is, and where do you think he'll get taken in the draft? I think he's most likely a third-round quarterback, probably a day 2 pick, I would say.
I think he might be an earlier day 3 pick. I think he might be a little later than that because I don't know that there's any necessarily special traits. I think he's got a good arm and he's tough and he's a solid athlete, but I don't think there's anything about him that's A+. And this would be my concern in an exact game like this is anytime he's seen good man-to-man coverage, and this is on the receivers too, haven't really gotten open. It just seems like he's a little either hesitant or erratic throwing into those tighter windows when he really has to thread the needle. So I think Sorsby is a solid prospect. I think he's a guy, to me, he's probably more of a day 3 guy that I would think of from round 4 to 6, but certainly has the build, has good athleticism. It's just a matter of can he make those throws? Can he really drive the football into tight windows?
I'll give him a little more credit. I'll say he's be a third-round pick in this upcoming NFL draft. I think he'll get taken somewhere in the third round this year. So Dalton's got Cincinnati. I've got Arizona to win this game, which would be an awesome, awesome Big 12 game. All right.